I would like to get started. My name is Barbara Stronzer, and I'm Chair of the Parks Committee for Community Board 7. I'd like to welcome everybody to our meeting. I'm going to start by reading our guidelines and code of conduct for this meeting. Bronx Community Board 7 has the right to remove and arrest a member of the public to leave a meeting or block participation of anyone who engages in inappropriate conduct, including but not limited to obscene or offensive images or language, personal attacks, threats, or any other behavior that reasonably impedes the orderly administration of the meeting. The above clause includes the use of the chat function via teleconference. Repeated offenses will be reviewed by the board's executive committee or the Budget Personnel and Ethics Committee for a ban of the participant in the event of a repeated disruptive behavior. The amount of time to be objectively determined by the above committee. If in-person outbursts or attacks continue, this will be considered disturbing the peace, and the authorities shall be summoned. Okay. Welcome everybody. The first thing we're going to do is take attendance. Attendance sheet? Yes. Okay. All right. Thank you. All right, I'm here. Gwendolyn Thomas Steve. Present. All right. Tasha Andrews is absent. Ruth Caraballo. Present. Thank you. Toby Buford. Yezu Lopez Jensen. Present. Thank you. Daisy Perry. Present. Thank you. And Kazi Noor, did I say that right? Okay, we do have a quorum. Okay. First item, review of June's minutes. It's a long time ago. Committee, just take a quick look. You have them with you. They were online, and can we get a motion to accept them?
Motion to accept.
All right.
I second the motion.
Okay. Okay. All in favor? Committee?
Aye.
Aye. All right. We'll move on to follow-up from the previous meeting, and that was in June. Joe, we have two items listed there.
Sure. So the pillars, we put together quotes. We have submitted it, and we are waiting for approval of the funds. So we got the quotes. We sent it to law. The law says it, works it out with the insurance company because it's through a personal vehicle. And as soon as the funds are released, we will have them fixed.
So in other words, we have to wait until the insurance company pays for those sites?
Yeah. So it's a little bit of a
What
process.
happened to the promise that it was going to be done in-house over the latter part of the summer?
Yeah, we need the money, and then because it's going to be done on overtime. So we're going to get them to pay.
So we should see them, or did you say you've had experience with this in the past?
I can't give you a date. We'll touch base monthly,
Okay, and there were two different insurance companies involved, because you had two auto accidents on the parkway. Okay.
Okay, and then the St. James Rec Center, the HVAC and boiler emergency reconstruction project is in the construction phase, and it should be completed by March 2024.
So 324 for the boiler at St. James. Okay, good. All right, we'll move on to new business. The New York Botanical Garden has a presentation on the Site Operations Center project. Aaron?
I'm just going to give a quick introduction to my colleagues.
Good
evening, everyone. My name is Aaron Boschka, and it's wonderful to see so many familiar faces. I hope you had a wonderful summer. My fellow friends of trees and friends of Mosswood Parkway and all the sort of colleagues, we're here tonight because, as you know, the New York Botanical Garden is on public property, and when we do a major capital project, an entity called the Public Design Commission has to weigh in on the design qualities of that project. As part of that process, we are seeking a recommendation and letter of support from Community Board 7 to help further the design review of this project. It has not yet started yet. Ursula will go all through that. So I'm joined here tonight by Angel Hernandez, who many of you know, recently appointed as the Bronx historian. So is a wealth of knowledge of the Lorillard stables and everything that goes in here. We have Mark Donnelly here, who's one of our senior project managers, or Associate Vice President of Capital in our Capital Unit, and Alden, who's just joining us tonight. Alden, I forget your last name, I'm sorry. Alden Madry, who's part of our Capital Projects team. As we've been here before and sought letters of support from Public Design Commission, you know we do projects efficiently, under budget, and are good stewards of public and private resources. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ursula. Our presentation's short, and at the end we'll have some questions, but I think this is a small enough group that if there's something burning that you can't remember, you can maybe interject or raise your hand, or however the chairwoman prefers this to happen. So.
I would prefer she do her presentation, and then we'll open it up to questions.
Well, thank you, Erin, and thank you, everybody, for having us here tonight and for listening to the project we're going to talk about. I'm going to talk you through the package that we have. I'm going to talk through what the existing conditions are, so you have a better understanding of the site within the garden. And then Mark, who's a registered architect, is going to walk us through what the proposed new design for the facilities are. So if you go to the next page, which is the neighborhood, which I think you all know the neighborhood well, which you know where we are, and within the New York Botanical Garden, the 250 acres of the garden, this site is our current Workers' Operations Center. It's our ops center. It's where, back of house, where our union staff have shops, so carpentry, painting, plumbing, the many things that we do ourselves. And they also have a locker room, lunchroom, which those things are all together in one building. There are a couple other buildings within the site that is considered the Works Operations Center. One of them is used for our administrative offices. It's in our the historic stable building that was part of the Lorillard property originally when the garden was Lorillard property. And then there's another building that's a garage, and where we make repairs to vehicles and store equipment and vehicles and things of that sort. So that's, again, it's closest to the Bronx River Parkway, so it's that side of the garden that's closer to the Bronx River Parkway near the Eastgate. And so that's where we are within the garden. And the next page, which is a little tighter view, it's that circular page that has the bubble, shows where the site operations center is in relationship to the Bronx River Parkway. So basically, it is on the very perimeter, and so that we have the fence line, and then we have the Bronx River, the elevated section. Well, it's not an elevated section. The section of the Bronx River Parkway southbound is closest to us. If you go to the next page, you'll see an image of the existing site. So basically, if you look at, there you go, Barbara. So that's an aerial view. Looking down, you can see the building that's identified as the existing lower garage. That is actually where our new facility will be located. So we will knock that building down. It is almost 75 years old. It's in really poor condition. It is not well laid out. It's outlived its useful life. So that's the efficiency of the site. You can see the site is a little bit sprawling. It's not really well organized. So all of that is what motivated the garden to start to design and plan a more efficient operations center for us, and with Aaron's assistance to get public funding to help to partially cover the cost of this project. The next page is this is where we start to get into a little more detail about the elevations that are the existing buildings. So you start to get, if you're looking at the image that has the arrows that go through the site. This is a representative of an elevation of what the stable looks like and the existing lower garage building that ultimately will knock down. That building is actually 2 levels. There's a lot of site, there's about 20 plus feet approximately of site change from the higher elevation that the stable is and the upper floor of the lower garage, and then down to the lower floor. And the lower floor is where the shops are. So the carpentry, the painting, etc. And the next few pages are more of the same, basically. There are sections through the site, so you can start to have a better understanding of what the buildings look like. If you can go to the next page, which if you have questions along the way, the stable is a building that has some condition issues as well. Our approach to this project has been to try to consolidate the site as much as possible to the lower portion and the area between the stable and the existing building of the lower garage, so that we can leave the front of the site available for future development, potentially to return it back to the public portion of the garden. So it's right near our lilac collection and the Edible Academy. And so our hope is that by not building out the front portion of the site, we'll be able to, in the future, when funds become available, put resources into the stable building to potentially redevelop it in some way, maybe bring the lilacs up to the front of the building so it'll be in the garden instead of the back of the house. So we're trying to really consolidate down the site to what we need to function and to do all the facility tasks that are required, but then to also have future growth back to return some of the grounds back to public use. So a visitor could come, we could expand the collection, etc. So if you looked at the existing site views, I mean, if you just go through the next couple of pages, these are all photographs of existing conditions, basically, so you get a general sense. You can see that in general, the site is somewhat sprawling. There's not defined circulation where vehicles should go. So our goal is to try to organize it in some way that makes it, again, support what's happening in the garden, and then also become much more efficient. One of the things that's important with this site is the circulation. There's a lot of through traffic that happens. We're also trying to clean that up. So one of the things Mark will talk about is that in addition to the building, we're also looking at the way vehicles move through the site, and we're introducing more ramp. So, I think right now you can look through the pictures and get a general sense. When you get to that drawing, the graphic that is the proposed site plan, this is what, so a few more pages probably for a few of you, it looks like that is where we're going to start to talk about what we're proposing. So, and with that, there we go, you have it. I'm going to turn it over to Mark and ask him to walk you all through it, and then we can, we have some bigger boards here that are illustrative. One thing I will say before Mark starts with the site plan is we're really interested as an institution in trying to meet the city's goals for decarbonization, those 2050 goals, where we're trying to all get to net zero. It's a very important part of everything we do every day at the garden, but in particular, these are great opportunities for us to look at and to try to put the resources into it to make us as carbon neutral as possible. This building right now is projected, it isn't built yet, and we're not finished with design, but it's projected to be LEED Platinum, which is the highest level of LEED that a building can be from an energy efficiency standpoint. It's also projected to be net positive in energy, which basically means we're going to utilize, and Mark will go through the tools that we're going to utilize to make the building as tight from an energy use perspective. We're going to use geothermal wells to help with our energy use, and we're also going to use photovoltaics, so solar on the roof, to generate our own electricity. And then, the net positive energy basically means we will be able to generate enough electricity that we will have excess, and we will then use it with other adjacent buildings. So all of those are the things. We're also doing things related to water and stormwater to try to, ultimately make this as green a building as possible. But those are the things that we're really happy about and proud of that we think we can do with this building, this would be the first of this type of building, a net positive energy in this area of the Bronx, and we believe for a cultural institution. And so, I'm going to let Mark talk a little bit further about some of those initiatives. Thank you.
So I think Ursula did a good job of just explaining the site and where it's at. I think if everyone flipped back to the third page that has the round circle, which just shows the site. I think, so some of the ideas that the team sort of came up with this design thought of is if you look at the round circle, the red line is the Bronx River Parkway. The stable building, which Ursula mentioned, is a historic floor-layout building, and it's made out of stone and masonry. It's beautiful. Right now, the way people enter into the site of operations is they come through a gate that's facing where the stable building is, and then drive through the various buildings that make up operations, and then they drive down through the route that goes to the top of the circle and out. And so, right now, one of the big ideas of the project is to try to to move the whole operation center from that complete site to the site that's closer to the Bronx River Parkway, that red line. And so we would only be using half the site in the future for the operations workers, and that upper half at some point in the future can be given back to the public, and maybe they come up to this historical building that's being restored. So in order to achieve that, the design team came up with the idea that we'd have to close that gate and that access for people to get in, and instead they made a loop around the lower complex. So in this image over here, three-dimensional image of the site, here's the Bronx River Parkway, here's the front of the stable building, here's the stable building that fronts there, and the idea is to take that whole area and it'll remain part of the operations center, but the loop instead will be to come in and there'll be a ramp that takes you around. And then this area right here will be where operations workers are, and then potentially this area here could go back to the public and be part of the complex. So in order to make this area large enough to accommodate what we need, besides adding a ramp, we're going to put a retaining wall up against the Bronx River Parkway so we can capture a lot more flat area down here and make it useful space for all the operation workers to work. And then right now they're dispersed between the stable building, there's a garage building over here. All those people are now going to be placed in this new complex that's put down in that lower level. There's a 12-foot wall, 12-foot difference in elevation between this area and the area up there where the stable building is. The idea is all the workers and everything comes back here, and the public will be able to see them, and then one day they can open up that building to views from the public. So in order to accommodate the complex, we basically have all the different programs fit into this new complex that was built. And it's basically made up of an administrative section for all the workers that administrate to the union workers. There's a union worker trade space that has areas for the carpenters, the plumbers, the masons, the painters. Then their area in the middle has locker rooms, a multi-purpose room, bathrooms, and changing rooms. And then this area is the repair shop, as well as the garage for all the trucks and large equipment. And so we've now taken everything that's dispersed in this area and moved it down to here. And we'll continue to use this for operations, but sometime in the future, it can be thought of as a renovation and something given to the public. And so I think as the idea of the program, and the concept, and they're basically these bar buildings that are linked together with a 2-story, a 1.5-story, and then a 1-story with a green roof on it. That would also be an area that the workers could go out and have lunch on. So the idea is to kind of make this building that's unified, but it has a couple separate volumes and works in scale. This is a double-story building, so half of it is on the upper level, and the other half is down at the lower level. Now, the next idea of this building is to make it extremely sustainable. There's a few different ideas that are what architects do these days, and one is in terms of the structure, rather than using steel, they're using wood, because wood, as it grows, encompasses carbon from the atmosphere, and then if we use that for our structure, now we've taken carbon out of the air and put it into the structure of a building. When we make steel and we heat all that up, it putting tons of carbon into the atmosphere. So the first big idea of this building is our embedded carbon reduction, which is done by a mass timber structure, and also all the floors are made out of actually wood, and there are these laminations, almost like plywood with timber that makes the floors, and they're all fire rated and allow us to build a building like this with the idea that we're embedding carbon and helping all the issues with the environment. Then the next big idea that they have is I guess I would go to the envelope of it. So the type of walls and insulation in this building are at the highest level so that it's hard for heat to pass one way or the other, or moisture. So now we have an envelope that allows us when we heat or cool inside, the energy is not going through the walls. Another big idea then is the actual way we heat and cool the building. So what they've done is they've created a geothermal field out in the landscape, down under a cave, down 500 feet, and you're basically using the 60-degree temperature in the ground to take all your heating and cooling and bring it down there to release that energy down into the earth and bring it back up either warmer or cooler. And then on top of that, we put solar PV on the roof. And what we've done here is the amount of PV on the roof exceeds what the building could use. And the reason, and Con Ed usually only wants you to do what it can use plus another 10%, and then you can try to sell it back to the grid. But because our campus is set up with all the buildings that are tied on the grid to these buildings, any kind of extra power we produce, we can immediately send right over to the other buildings, and it's not involved with Con Ed. So it became another instance where we overloaded it with solar PV, and the city was very happy to do that. And then the other idea is on the one roof that really doesn't get the sun that would be useful for solar PV, we put a green roof, so there's plantings on there, and then we have an area with picnic tables for the workers to come out and have this sort of nice area that they can eat on. That also, the green roof absorbs heat and doesn't allow it to pass into the building, so it also helps with the energy efficiency. Then there's a big idea about daylight. So every office, every worker space has a light, a window, so they're not using artificial lighting throughout the day. They'll get natural light, which is a really helpful thing. Then for water, between low flow fixtures and on-site stormwater, we're taking any water that comes onto the site and not putting it back into the city's sewer system. We're actually infiltrating the water onto the site, into the ground, so it's reducing. And so anything that comes onto the site goes back into our site. And then interior, there's a big idea of the finishes for the workers, that they're creating healthy atmospheres in terms of color, the material, the low VOCs, and I went to that. And then all the energy store equipment. So I think, you know, the main issues, main things to explain again are the idea of taking all the operations complex and bringing it down to this lower level, so the upper level could have the idea in the future of giving back to the public. The area expands down here and we utilize all the space well. And then we create this building that really is energy efficient, sustainable, and gives a really healthy atmosphere for the 40 or 50 union workers that are in there taking care of the whole campus. And then I don't think I really used the drawings here as much. I think it was easier to show it on here.
What's the time frame?
So unfortunately with the city, it does take a while, which I'm sure some of you are familiar with. We think likely we're going to be in construction in about probably 3 years, honestly. Because we're at construction documents, we're at the end of construction documents, 90%. So this is when, the way it works with the application to the city is you ask for monies up front when you have like early design ideas, and then you go back to them when you're at the stage where you really have worked out all the details. And so that's where we are now, and we'll probably be submitting in about the next month. And it usually takes, you know, a little bit of time to hear back and to have something called the green light meeting where we present and they have an opportunity to ask questions and go through the budget. And so, we're hoping that we'll be in construction in about 3 years. And it's at least a year construction because it's a significant, you know, portion of the site. There's a lot of temporary things we'll need to do because all those folks who are currently in that existing building, we have to put together a temporary facility for them, so like the trailers, things of that sort, while we're building a new building, knocking down the old building.
I hope you tell me 2030.
I hope not.
No.
I hope not.
So what you're saying, Ursula, it's going to take 3 years to get the city to
Do their piece of
consider
it.
this.
Right, we have to go back to them, and yeah, it usually takes somewhere in that range for them to respond, and sometimes that's optimistic. I mean, we're working on these projects. We are starting construction on a project that we started in 2016 in design, and it's gone through many iterations, but you know, COVID did impact that, but you know, it is a protracted process.
But the actual construction would be a year once you get started.
Yeah, about a year and a half, probably max, you know, at this point, so.
Right, and so I apologize for skipping through the images, but maybe these two images kind of show the sense. This is the lower level, it's 2 stories, there's a stair up to the upper level, but here's this complex that really keeps the workers in an area that I think is attractive and nice, but keeps it away from the public view. And there's that historic building up at the top that's now looking towards the public and hopefully opened up. And then here's, on that upper level, the 1-story building, there's the two-story building, the one story up on the upper level, that base is building here, and here's that green roof and an area for workers to go and eat. And so they'll have their area there, and then some areas around it. So I think that sort of gives a sense of the building.
This is a project that's long overdue. Our Port Operations Center went through a renovation about 12 years ago. It was wrapping up, and that was, you know, it's it's for our horticulture staff. These are the folks who, you know, set up for events, knock down the events, deal with the snow removal, do all the trades that we were talking about before with the different shops. So they're an important part of our institution and keeping it running and functioning on a daily basis. And you know, it's overdue that they have a facility that not only is a good place for them to work, that they can feel proud and happy about, but also is organized and you know, conducive to accomplishing all the tasks that we need to do on a daily basis. So,
And this would be all city funds or
Not
a mix and match?
no, it's usually, as most projects are for us, there's always a blend. The city will pay for capital costs, but won't pay for design and engineering. So all the work we've been doing, the city will never pay for that. That's not part of the. But this is significant that Aaron has done a great job in fundraising and has actually tapped into state and some federal dollars. Right? Am I wrong on that? Yeah. And then there'll be private. So there'll also be a private. So it's the hybrid.
Mix and match.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, anybody on the committee have a question or a comment?
I have a question. So I appreciate hearing about the carbon neutrality. I feel like it's important and net zero. However, you guys mentioned it's accessible to public. However, what does the accessibility look like? As to, is there any fee that they would have to pay in order to get in? And like, I was just wondering about, and also for like people with disabilities, like how are you guys going to ensure that it's available to all?
Sure.
And also, what are your targeted public? Because I feel like public is a very broad term. If you can break that down for me.
Sure. So there's two aspects to accessibility. One is the physical mobility aspect of it. So everything we're designing is meets ADA requirements. So there's a bathroom, a locker room, etc. That if you had a mobility issue, you would have all the clearances you need, and the team has worked closely with the architects to make sure that that's the case. There is an elevator in the building, so if you were to arrive at the level on the left, which is the upper level, you would be able to access the lower level through the elevator. So from a mobility issue aspect, the building will be completely accessible. We're always sensitive to people who have other disabilities, whether it be visual, so there's typically signage that has Braille associated with it. So our team is pretty well versed, and I think we're addressing every issue I can think of. There may be something I haven't come up with. Then from an accessibility, public access. So anyone who's a visitor to the garden, if you came to the garden, there will be tours because we will be so proud of this building because it will be so positive from an environmental standpoint. We have talked about how we'll facilitate everybody understanding that in a experiential way. So there'll be tours where people can come and understand the geothermal and the solar and the green roof and the envelope improvements and things of that sort. So,
But the building itself isn't really for the public, right? I think when we were talking about the public, we were saying the upper level someday that's back of house might be moved to the public view of this old building that's historic, that's being used for operations and back of house work. But right now, this building is for the workers who took care of the site. So the public wouldn't be coming to this building for any reason unless they had a reason to visit the worker or something like that. One day, that upper part of the site maybe is given back, and that's when that question would be appropriate. What is it for?
If you go to the site plan, and maybe that's where the confusion was, which is that it says proposed site plan like this. So what we were talking about is this area in the front. So if you're familiar with the garden, this is Magnolia Way, where my hand is. And so Edible Academy is here, and the lilacs are over here. They actually abut the site. Yeah, it's hard to understand. Or even, because none of the images have it to, well, maybe it is the round circle. Maybe Mark's right. Maybe the round circle is the best. That's that third page. So we're not currently, it's this image. So if this is the Bronx River Parkway and this is the site that we're talking about now, the front here, this is currently behind a fence line. This is public. The fence line is like right at the edge of where that paving is, so here. So
Look at the right page.
what we're doing is we're not developing it now. We're trying to put everything in the back so that in the future, as funds become available, we can develop that in a way so that the public can use that. So it's not part of this project. We're trying to rewrite the growth of the future to basically not use it for parking or, utilities or things of that sort. So I think that's what we're trying to say.
All right. Any other questions from the committee? Anybody from the public have a comment or something? Did you raise your hand? Wait a minute, go ahead.
Sorry, I had a question. You mentioned that the current workers would need to be displaced in order to complete the construction?
Right, short term, the building they currently have their locker room in will need to be knocked down.
Okay.
So for them to be able to, on a day-to-day basis, we'll create a temporary facility for them to have a locker room lunchroom.
Does the creation of the temporary facility mean that there's going to be a section of the garden that won't be accessible to the public?
No, it'll actually be all within this site.
Yeah, we'll be able to fit it
Yeah.
in within this
Yeah.
complex.
So we can do all the work we need to do, but we'll create these temporary locker room lunchrooms.
All right, go ahead.
Is any historical, AJ Ramos, resident, is any historical fabric at risk or in danger of being lost or hurt during this process? You're saying a lot of construction near the historic building. Is there going to be a landmarks preservation committee hearing on this? What would the total cost you're asking from the taxpayers be? And to me personally, it feels like you're taking a historical building, just putting your employees there, promising down the future the public can eventually look at it at some point. And are you here on behalf of Botanical Garden or as historian?
I'm here as a botanical garden, but if you have any questions about this.
Oh, yeah, no, I just wanted to ask.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are my questions. Thank you so much.
Okay, so those were a lot of questions.
Questions.
So we're gonna have to-
Yeah.
So, to answer the first question, the stable building, which is the historic fabric of import on that site, is not being touched in this. The idea again is to leave it for the future as we further develop what's the best use for that building. Right now it's being used for offices. It's very inefficient. It doesn't meet code from a scarce perspective, So we're leaving that for the future, for whatever. The second question was.
Sorry, with the grading, that's where my
Yeah.
question of that came up, because you hear a lot about from landmarks preservation, they approve a building to get repaired, the next, it's demolished and gone.
Right.
So the second question was, any of it hurt or lost? You said no. Will it go to landmarks preservation committee at all?
So the way the campus is set up, there's only 3 buildings on the campus that are
Okay.
landmark.
Okay.
And
And
so
not the garden
it goes to the
okay.
PDC.
Public design commission.
And then
Right.
the final cost and taxpayers you guys are going to ask for, do you have any ballpark of that?
Sure, we have about 14 million of the 25.
And this is specifically only for employees at the town of Garden, so no public access. So it's 14 million only for the employees.
These are for DC 37 city employees.
Okay. Okay. Thanks so much.
Okay. Sirio, go ahead, you had your
Yeah,
hand.
I have my opinion. I'm amazed and glad that this construction doesn't involve a 12-story building, so I'm very touched by that. But what I wanted to say was basically, and for the public or something, honestly, somebody lived in the Bronx for almost 67 years. I never knew this place existed. Okay?
Yeah.
So it was like out of sight, out of mind. But just looking at it and looking over it and noticing that there's a few historical buildings there.
That's the horse stable, the old
The
North
horse stable,
Family
which
horse
we
stable.
have one behind the 52nd precinct. So I'm amazed that there's another one.
Yeah, me too.
And it's not going to be involved in anything. I mean, as far as the public goes, in my personal opinion, I give it a thumbs up. It looks beautiful.
And just to add in, just moving everything out of the historic building preserves it.
Right.
Because there's no wear and tear, right? So we're emptying out that building to preserve it and make it building another facility to make it more accountable to,
To be visited
Well,
as a
works,
historical
yes.
work.
So right now, that building, while it's still being used, it's in jeopardy.
Very good. I think it's a great plan. I mean, and it's all this modern environmental safety stuff. And we hopefully, This is the way of the future.
Okay. Any other questions from anyone? All right.
Just more. You're building a wall to block the highway out?
No.
No, right now the
It would look like two walls in the picture.
the highway is here, and there's a fence, and from the fence, the grade slopes, maybe about 10 feet, it's about 6 feet tall, and it slopes down, and it's not usable space. So we're gonna take that slope and cut it back to the fence, so now we'll have a flat area.
So the fence line, it's the third from the end.
This area right here is actually sloping up towards the
Right.
parkway. We'll be able to cut across and make a big open
Proposed
area.
elevations, it
So
looks
now
like
the dumpsters and everything. will be
existing
down there.
plantings, Bronx River Parkway, existing NYBG, perimeter fence, new retaining wall, existing, so it looks like there's an extra wall.
Right, that one that has the proposed
Yeah.
elevation, right, you're on that page. So there is an existing defense line, because the Bronx River Parkway is higher than the elevation of this site by somewhere about 15 feet at least. So there's an existing fence line, a stockade fence that you see when you drive along the Bronx River Parkway. And then what we're doing is we're building a retaining wall in front of it on this side, so not on the Parkway side, on the garden side, that is at the low elevation.
But it will block the view from the people riding on the Bronx River looking into the garden?
No, because right now you have a slope.
Yeah, if you look at,
Basically, instead of retaining with the wall, you know, we're cutting into the slope, pushing that
Well,
wall, but it's at the same elevation of what
there's actually a picture of showing the view from the parkway. And you'll just see the tops of the building.
Yeah, we want to see the nice buildings too, we don't want to hit behind the trees and the.
But, so the fence is already there.
Well, you can't really see anything if you're going
We have another question.
There's this existing site in these page, and on it, it shows on the parkway, here's the fence, and right now you can see a little bit of the existing.
Yeah, you see the little roof, you don't see the historic building or anything back there.
Right, and then you go a little bit farther in here, I think someone did a render. What do you see?
It would be good to people keep their eye on the road.
Well, that's why you guys are hiding it for the employees.
Yeah, what you'll see from Bronx River, right now you see the roof of the stable.
Yeah.
You're absolutely
Yeah.
right. What you'll see is because this building is a little lower in elevation, you'll see probably the solar, and then you'll see the roof of the stable beyond it. So
Right.
you won't
there's
see
a
a
trade-off
wall,
there.
you'll still have that wonderful view of stockade fence that we currently have,
There
but
it
then
is right
you'll see
here.
the top of the
Back.
building.
So we do lose the side of the historic building from the public.
I don't think you never saw it.
Because in landmarks preservation, they usually show pictures across the street and then the view would be
Right,
obstructed.
that's what that
So the
view is.
obstructed.
But you can't see the building from the Bronx River Parkway.
As of now, you can.
No.
Not in the little bit.
Okay,
You might see a little bit, and you can continue to see a little bit if you look at the last page.
I would like to move the meeting.
Thank
Do
you
we
so
have a motion from the,
Mr.
quickly, go ahead.
Sergio, I actually feel like you, being a 45-year resident. I knew it was there, but I actually never saw it. But because of where it's located, I'm just curious. Do you need other community board approvals from the neighbors? Or is it just for itself?
Just what it says.
Okay, good. All right. Do we have a motion from the committee regarding the project?
Ruth makes a motion to create a letter of support for the New York Botanical Gardens for this project. Second.
All right. Is there any discussion from the committee on that motion? Okay, so from here, we will take a vote to send a letter of support regarding the project. Thank you. All right. Barbara votes yes. Gwendolyn Thomas Steed.
Yes.
Okay. Ruth Caraballo.
Yes.
Toby Buford. None. Okay. Jesus Lopez Jensen.
Yes.
Okay. Daisy Perry.
Yes.
Okay. And Hazmi Noor.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries. Thank you. And thank you very much for your detailed presentation. We look forward to seeing this in actuality. Oh, Toby's here. Okay.
No, it is cool.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much. But, right? We had heard stories that Williamsbridge Oval was getting some funding. Are you familiar with any of this? I understand it was from the council person.
I have some information. So, Williamsbridge Oval, the funding, so the county team is preparing for a work order to certain drainage systems in the park, which will then be used to help refine and appropriate scope of work for the funding that was allocated.
As of when?
That was the official answer I got.
Okay, so it's
I brought
going,
the agenda upstairs. I said, listen to Kat, and that was the answer she gave. So I'm sure there's no dates.
so in other
You
words,
gotta ask.
the money will be used toward the drainage system then,
Well,
correct?
they're gonna study the drainage
Drainage
systems
first.
so that whatever project they do decide to do, with whatever is decided by the community,
Okay.
obviously, or the council member, they'll use that study while designing, so that the drain, because sometimes we have issues with drainage, it's huge.
Right, definitely over there. Thank you. We've heard that Aqueduct Walk may be landmarked. Have you
Okay.
heard anything to that?
So, Landmarks Preservation Commission voted to calendar the site for consideration in August. The next step is for the commission to hold a public hearing. Once the hearing is scheduled, all affected community boards and elected officials will be notified well in advance.
Okay,
Thank you.
so that would be nice. Wonderful.
And Webster House was the last one, right?
Webster House, yes, and then we have a couple of maintenance issues. Go ahead.
All right, so we completed some work on the roof, and some of the leaks have been contained, but more work is needed. We're working with our 5-borough team to see if this project can be entered into a roofing contract.
Okay, so the house will not open in the near future?
We're using
You have the boiler, right?
We're using it, the boilers, and we're using it for like storage and stuff, but not official.
Not
It's
so.
But that's, they're working on this roofing contract, so it's all, I
Okay, so
don't
you-
have a timeline.
Yeah, you have no idea.
I have no timeline.
Okay, so we won't see that for a while. All right. Some maintenance issues. It was reported that the lights at the World War I monument were out again. Can you have somebody go out there and,
This,
So
yeah,
what they
Serial
want.
actually reached out to me 3 times on this one, so thanks Serial for the heads up. It was put in for repair. When's the last time you passed by? I'm gonna pass by now. I'm gonna check.
It was,
Only one's on.
yesterday.
The right one is on.
Only one is on.
The north side.
1 out of 3. 2 of them are out.
2 are out?
I don't know if I said that.
Okay.
okay, you want to check it out?
But is there any way to get them brighter? They really don't do nothing. And
Right,
the
you're
trees
right,
are blocking.
you're right. It's very,
I
very
think,
dim
you know,
there.
it was a great
The
idea,
foliage,
but
the
they don't
trees
have the
have gotten
beam
very
going
large
up at it.
too, yeah.
So what
Or
I'll
a good
do,
angle,
Yeah,
what I'll do is ask
or a
them
good angle either, the
Right.
way
Yeah.
that they're positioned.
if they can upgrade like the wattage or the bulbs or something. I don't know as far as like what the power requirements are. Maybe there's not enough electricity to really blast off a powerful bulb. But,
find out, see what
Yeah.
can be done, because I think it gets dimmer and dimmer
Yeah.
Yeah,
from when they
because it
first
just,
put it in.
and then the trees are blocking the light anyway. So the flags are flying in dominoes,
Good luck.
which is a major problem.
All right. The next, oh, hello.
Not just, before we get off the topic of the Williamsbridge Oval, it rained a lot on Tuesday. And I did take pictures, I don't have them with me, but the whole area was so flooded that it was really dangerous, and I'm told this happens regularly. I mean, you really couldn't even see the grass versus the track out here. I had never seen it before. Now, it was a lot of rain, but I'm told that it happens often. Is there something that can be done?
So we have like a vacuum truck for the drains, and we occasionally, there's one for the borough. So I'll schedule it to come out and check the drains out and see what we do.
But I mean, it may need more than that, but I guess.
We gotta
somebody-
That's what I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Should we call, should I send them pictures for you on that?
You could send me the pictures.
Okay,
I'll give it to you in a minute.
all right.
Well,
Yeah,
once
because I
we
was
leave,
really taken aback. I mean, we found a way to get out, but literally, we climbed up, it took us about 5 minutes to figure out what way was the best way.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was with someone who had to be in his 80s,
Okay.
so we made it out
All
okay.
right, oh, wow.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know what you mean. All right. We have
Yes, quick about
initial,
Oval, you don't build a park in a reservoir and don't expect it to flood years later.
Right.
But there should be a water fountain down by the skate park. You have to come all the way down here, especially during the heat wave. Some of the kids look like they're about to like pass out. And then for the landmarking, finally, landmarks preservation came up here. Please come to Norwood and Bedford Park before more is lost and forever our future generations robbed of the bucolic life we once had up here. And you did a great job over the summer on the Parkway. I saw there were some complaints online about garbage, but you guys cleared it up after all the parties. It was really, really good. Don't let the Karens bother you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would like
We
to
appreciate, we appreciate that, because I really feel.
They were so nice too when they were out there like with smiles cleaning up. And you would
This
see people
summer
set up
was
a
way
party. It was
different.
amazing.
Yes, way
The staff was
different.
amazing.
I feel like we really, I don't know, we've been doing this, and I've told you guys, sector, like, so we've split grass operations into north and south, and I feel like we really got a handle on it this year,
Yeah.
and we did.
No, it was great.
So, hearing from you guys, thank you.
I'm not as long as a resident of some of the others at this table, but I am a resident with children, and we go to the parks and we walk through, and
Play in the dirt.
more often than not, it's like, get out of there, it's disgusting. And this summer was not that kind of experience, so absolutely.
Very
Thank
happy
you.
to hear that, and thank you
I
for
would
coming.
like to add, it was wonderful to see the garbage truck come around and empty baskets.
Yes, yes.
In the past, you would have the little carts, and your maintenance people would be picking up bags of garbage, putting it in the back of the carts, and taking it off someplace. We never saw a garbage truck, so to see them come out, hopefully it's still working. I know there were problems in the past.
I almost wish you didn't say it.
I was thinking the same thing.
No, but it looks like a fairly new truck, so I'm confident that we'll continue to make the rounds. But I think that made a big difference too, to see them get out and actually dump the garbage right there and then, and not see somebody else pick up the bags and have to cart them off to another site, which made no sense. All right, do we have any other issues related to maintenance while we have Joe here?
Question?
Yes.
Barbara, I think you might know the answer. Could I just hear an update on the pillars, Marshall Parkway pillars?
On the what?
On the pillars.
Oh,
themselves.
the pillars, yes.
I'll read it to you. I actually read it before. So we put together quotes to submit to the insurance companies, and everything's a process. You know, that takes them 3 years to build a building, so I don't know how long it's gonna take, but we put the quotes in, and as soon as we get a release of funds, we're gonna repair it ourselves. We need the money.
Thank you.
So it'll be a while, I think, Anthony, knowing how these companies work. Yes, Daisy.
I just have a question about the mowing, the grass. So I believe it's the north side, it's kind of high. I'm just wondering if someone's going to want to.
Between what?
Is it Van Cortlandt Park East? Like walking here from the Grand Concourse, and just walk straight up. There's like a junior high school
And
on
that's
the
it?
corner.
Yeah.
Like there's the grass on that side is kind of high.
So the way we've been doing that, Parkway grass, is that, is anybody familiar with Robin's Neck over there at City Island?
Yes.
We have a crew that comes out of Robin's Neck, and they do Pelham Parkway. This is all they do all summer.
It's the Parkway.
In a loop. They just cut Pelham Parkway, go to Marshall Parkway. So I got.
Well, Marshall Parkway does not get hit as often as Pelham Parkway. I will tell you that.
They spend a lot more time on it, but Pelham Parkway also has more.
Very good.
Absolutely.
So they get stuck there a lot.
However, they don't make it down to the bottom of the parkway as frequent as they should. Especially because now there's PS 80, 280, and DeWitt Clinton. So you have all these students walking through those areas now that are just disgusting.
Syria?
There was a time when you used to have the cans on the parkway, and in the morning I would clean out the drains all over the parkway, near the monument. And I understood you had to get rid of them because people were like dumping their personal garbage. But I was wondering, is there any way you could put at least one near the monument, maybe, or
Like
something?
in the cross street, like in the middle?
Yeah, in the middle, yes, in the middle, so that people who were going to work won't.
Especially with the light lanes, that's a good spot.
Because then I have a location where I can, but I don't do it no more because I don't know where to put the garbage. And I'm not lugging it with me to find a spot. You can get so much out of me and that's it. You know, and one time when it rained, I don't know, this Tuesday, if anybody can help me out, I don't know if that drain flooded in front of the monument. Was there a puddle?
The giant puddle looking.
Because, yeah, that drain, that one drain needs to be.
I'm gonna see if it's our drain. Not
Yeah,
the team.
it's, and then the only problem is I could give it to DOT, but they trying to give a location without an address.
No, that's difficult, very difficult. Joe, I've noticed some of that, a lot of clear plastic bags were tied along the piping on the Parkway Mall. Was that Parks that put them there, or some of the supers? I know some of the
I'll
supers.
ask my supervisors if they had anybody do that, but I doubt it was us.
Okay, so that was good that some of the locals decided they would help out. Good.
We actually end up getting in trouble for that, but it makes it so, yeah. We have an internal inspection division that comes around. We got bags hanging from fences and stuff. They don't like it too much, but I get how it works.
It works.
So we'll take the hit if it's working, you know?
Right, yes.
Yeah, so am I allowed to bring like a new issue, or like is it still from like yesterday's discussion?
Excuse me, to bring up what?
A new issue.
A new issue, if it pertains to maintenance, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm brand new to this. This is my first meeting actually. So I'm part of Kingsbridge, Bainbridge. I live right in between that. And in that neighborhood specifically, we barely have any trash cans around, and hence you see a lot of garbage around it. I have some picture on my phone if you would like to see it. So right next to the D train when it comes to Bainbridge, there is only one garbage can. Up until 6th train and then 2 to 3 blocks, you're going to see only one garbage can. And half of the time, I can say almost all the time, it's overfilled, and then you will see trash all around.
What park is this? Is this
Sorry?
near a park? Which park?
It's near Poe Park, P-O-E Park,
Okay.
Poe Park, and also right when you get out of the D train in Kingsbridge, you're going to see that. And also when you get out of with the 4 train Kingsbridge, you're also going to see garbage all around. So that's one thing. And it has been happening for a pretty long time now, and not only in that part of the block, but also in different parts. Like right next to where I live, we don't have any trash cans. So if I want to throw something in a trash can, I would have to bring it home and then throw it. And I think that is very not convenient for our neighbors. And I feel like that is the reason why we're seeing a lot of trash around, because where can we throw it? So if that's something that you can look into and help my community with, I feel like that would be very helpful.
Okay, I think he can do the parks, but that's it.
Yeah, I can only,
Needs a couple
I mean, the only thing I have any control over is
The park.
the park. So if you're saying the perimeter of Poe, I could put a few cans, but as far as like a corner of a street, that's sanitation.
Sanitation, and if you want to talk to the transportation, because it's
The train.
part of the
Right,
train
train
system, so
system.
you might want to make
Right.
a comment in the transportation committee meeting, because they usually have a representative there as well.
And perhaps you might want to ask a few of the merchants in the area to adopt the basket. Sanitation would put one out, and person would have to be responsible for picking the lining in the basket up when it's full and whatever. So sometimes the storekeepers will do that also.
Good to hear.
Also,
It's on the
in
website.
the,
You can also send me an email about it and
Will do.
in the Poe Park area, MTA is doing a lot of construction. There were some cans, and you're right, they are all gone. The only cans in the Poe Park area are actually in the park. They're like 2 or 3 in the park. So you're right, but I believe some of those cans were taken due to the construction, because the whole block is closed off, and some of the park will be closed off as well.
Yeah, so, capital project.
Because of Poe Capital and then the train project. So most of that,
That makes sense.
the triangle will be closed, honest.
That makes a lot of sense.
And
Yeah.
additional question to the park, since we're talking about right now. So in that area, there's a lot of drug addiction issue that we have. And the park is a place for everyone, including the kids. And I feel like when I have talked to my community neighbors, one thing that I heard is they're afraid to take their child in there, because there are a lot of things going on in the park. People are smoking, people are drinking, people are cursing. A lot of things are happening. And I feel like in that case, we do need supervision as to our kids are safe, our elderlies are safe, because there is, like, again, different generation of people. And I have noticed, I usually walk around the park because my dad is usually there, but like it is not the safest, I would say, especially for the kids. Also, there were attacks on one family. Basically, they were hearing racist words from another family. So like these are certain things I feel like if we can focus on, then I feel like that will make the park safe for kids to go, family to go, elderly people to go in, because right now it's not safe.
So I can tell Pat to do some extra rounds.
Yeah.
Don't have a ton of Pat, but they will do some extra rounds. Captain Sanchez is awesome, so he'll definitely do some.
Just for you know, the 52nd Precinct is going to be in Kingsbridge on the 28th of this month at 100 West Kingsbridge Road.
At the council meeting.
Yeah, the council meeting.
The council meeting.
I urge you to go to that meeting because the deputy inspector will be there.
And they can do more about safety issues
They
in
will-
the parks
They will
than the parks.
support the police
They have more
department, the
manpower.
parks department by sending a car in there.
We've been doing a lot of homeless encampment cleanups and
That's problems.
So there's a lot of homeless encampments. That's and then needles are just on through the roof.
Unbelievable.
I can just listen on Poe really quick. Poe, Bill Finger or Bob Finger and the guy that made Batman sat at Poe Park and created it. So we live in Gotham. Just get used to it.
All right, we're going to move the agenda to.
Just one comment.
Yes.
On a positive note, when the grass is cleaned up, whoever you have doing it by Marshall and the concourse, they do an excellent job. I know it's not as often as we'd like, but it always looks great.
Yeah.
So,
Big
Means a lot.
difference this summer, whatever happens.
Means a lot.
Yes, please get that word
yeah,
back.
young man anyway.
Yeah.
The summer
Big,
time.
big difference.
Yeah.
I think the summer youth made a difference. At
Yes.
least they made a difference in Folk Park.
Yes.
More people.
Yes. Okay, we'll move on to capital and expense budget requests. It's that time of the year. I'm sure the committee looked at what was in the past for parks. We have many capital projects that we put in. Many of the answers that come back are ask a council person. Okay, so I think it's good we put the items in because some of the council people will actually check our requests. So I'm all for keeping them in, but it never hurts if you see your council person or his staff or her staff to bring up an issue and say, well, we really need rehab money for this particular project. That would help. Now, so far, I got one request, and that was for renovations at PSA Playground. So that we will hopefully put into next year's request. So please check the list that we have. If anybody has something else.
I don't know if you guys are aware of the horrible condition of Harris Field.
Yes,
It's
we put it in.
Yes.
It's there. It's on your list.
Oh, yeah, it's on my
It's
list, but
on
I heard
for this
money
year.
was appropriated somehow.
I'm just.
Did we?
I
Did
don't
you
know.
hear that, Carl, or I heard at some meeting that they were getting
I'm
money?
not 100% sure.
I'll find out again. I was on lunch list.
Iris.
Yeah, it
I don't
definitely
know
will
if it's
be on
the
the
full,
list.
it might not be, but just Harris Field is like
Okay,
in
that's
trouble.
good to know. All right, and of course with the expense items, the more staff we can get, for every level at the parks, be it pep squad, maintenance people, grass cutters, desperately needed. In the Bronx, we have a lot of parks just in our district. I think we're up to 10 or 11 in Community Board 7, and it's difficult. It's difficult for you and your staff, and for those of us who live there and see the lack of maintenance from time to time. So, we've got to push all the time. The current mayor had promised 1% of the budget. We never saw
Now it's
that.
taken away 5.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, 15.
Right.
Yeah. Yes, right. It's you get very discouraged when you hear these promises and then they never come about. All right, so please, if anybody wants to send me any requests, feel free to email them to me, but look over what we have already.
The PSA playground, is that what we sometimes called Marshall Playground, or is that the one in the school for the kids?
It's Marshall
So
Playground.
that's
During the
technically
day, the school uses it, but after hours, now who funds that? The parks?
I
or the
think that's
school?
why it's
Yeah.
here.
It's a JOP.
Yeah.
JOP, okay.
And then my question was, will the kids be distracted from that? Because from when I saw PSA's test scores are not the strongest in the area. And why are MS 80, 280, 56, and 20 left out of the budget if we could find something that they can use? For PSA, almost all of Bedford Park is under construction. So now that school is back in session, let's tear up the playground by the school and the classrooms. Can we just like calm down a little bit, question why the rush? How many parents, students, or admin are aware of this request, or even are on board for it? Or anybody here today came? Why didn't any of them show up? And the board is not doing the other schools, specifically PSA, so why them and not everybody else? And yeah, if we could include the other schools, then you help.
Except,
The
you
other
know,
schools
when you
have
say
playgrounds.
why the rush, I know with
Yeah.
capital outlay contracts for parks,
Because MSA
4
needs playground
years,
here is all torn
5
up.
years sometimes,
And that has
so.
to deal with this.
So if I may, actually, I recall PSA Parents Council coming and requesting this a very
Okay,
long
yes.
time ago. And they probably don't know what phase we are in this project. I would even bet that the parent that came to the board meeting and requested is not even in that school anymore, right? Because these processes take so long. But if my memory stands correct, the deal was we put the money into this specific park so that this school can use it during the day and it also be available to the public after school hours.
But he was
A long
get some
time
stuff
ago.
at the other schools too, not just the
Yes.
one in Bedford Park, but some on the northern side or down a little more too. Thank you.
Okay. Anthony?
Barbara, this might be a very unusual request, but in the last 3-4 years, we've had several pillars on Marshall Parkway being destroyed. And obviously, the city has to pay for it. Is there any way to get maybe a reserve fund for that? Because if you look at the pillars, even by natural growth over the next 5-10 years, some of them are just gonna
Deteriorate.
because they're close to 100 years old now.
Lovely
So is there any way, just as a budgetary request, to maybe ask for some reserve funding, so Joe, when they eventually come to you for repair, et cetera, you know, the money's already there, or some of it's already?
We could certainly put into our budget requests funding for the pillars that need rehabilitation. It's not gonna hurt.
But we're paying for insurance, no?
Well, for
Insurance
these,
is gonna pay for it.
for the ones
No,
that
personal
are
vehicle.
down now.
Yeah, the ones that are down. I
But-
guess.
He's asking something different.
Yeah.
If we can, in
He
our
should
next
repair.
budget
Right.
request, request something in
The only
advance
reason
for
why
reserve
insurance
fund.
companies are involved is because of car accidents.
Okay, all right, so it's not.
But it would be
Yeah,
nice,
just like
Anthony,
next
I
year.
agree, if we had some funding and if they could start to repair before they collapse, if you know what I mean, okay? So that would be helpful. So I will put it in capital project. All right, any other items? All right, everybody has looked at the agenda, and do we have anybody here from any of the parks recreation centers?
Hello everyone, I'm Dijon Williams. I am covering for Fatima Brown, who's at Pole Park. I don't know if you all know, she just had her second child, so I'll send you congratulations. So she'll be out for some time. I'm formerly of St. Mary's Park Recreation Center. So I'll just be covering Pole Park, and I have another park as well. The construction in Pole Park is getting underway. Excuse me, not the construction in Pole Park. I have two sites.
Okay.
I have Pole Park and I have Owen Dolan. So
Okay.
Owen Dolan, Westchester, and Tremont.
Should we pray?
For me, yes, please, every day. But I'll be taking over for Fatima, and I'll be coming to the meetings from here
Oh,
on.
great, okay.
Welcome.
Thank
All
you.
right, welcome.
Thanks.
See you each month then. All right, anybody here from any of the Friends groups? Would you like to report on the vote for us?
So the Vogue Park, I'm so happy that we were able to get the Playmobil in the park, and pictures were done and children had a lovely time. And parents did not understand that it was open to the public. So we made sure we pushed that whenever you see the Playmobil is open to the public. We had our last Playmobil, I think August 26th. It was great. I asked Gigi for 2 more dates. I don't know if I'm going to get them. The Playmobil ends Halloween 31st. So I asked for a date around the end so we could do like a superheroes day. So that's going well. And Friends at Devoe Park received a grant that for art. And so because of the rain last week, we weren't able to do it. But this week, on the 16th from 2 to 6, we're going to be in the park. Will be an opportunity for people to do some painting, actually, of what's in the Devoe Park. And the big, it was $3,000.
Oh, nice, very nice.
And the big news is that our pollination station actually thrived. Birds are enjoying it. We have several types of bees.
Oh, nice.
And we're hoping that it'll keep going. The Devoe Park used to get the Rufus hummingbird. Haven't seen it in a while. We're hoping we can draw some of them back. We do get crows, we do get cardinals, we do get blue jays, but it would be nice to get that Rufus hummingbird back. So.
And for the bird watchers, you?
I'm a bird watcher. That's yeah.
All right, thank you. Anyone else from any of the other parks? No friends groups other than Devoe? Okay, do we have anything else before we close the meeting? One quickie, go ahead, Syria.
Yes, I want to express, there's a survey, I mentioned this at the other meeting yesterday, but they tagged it along with the community board email. There's a survey about e-bikes and mopeds in parks. I request everybody, please, go on and take that survey and vote against it. Because as we already know now, they're all over our sidewalks. They're already in our parks illegally. And they have absolutely, these riders have absolutely no respect for any human being on a sidewalk. They don't think twice about you, okay? They should have never, anything, and I say it over again, anything that isn't a pedal bike should be registered, insured, and what's the third one? I forgot. My own rule, I forgot.
In the
whatever,
street, not on the
so
side.
I forgot what it is. What it should be,
All right, thank you.
And the last day to take the survey is the 15th.
When is it?
The 15 2 days.
Friday, all right. So I
Yeah,
think
Friday,
that was
so
on your
advise-
newsletter, right? That went out to everybody. So if you haven't checked it out,
There's a
please
giant
do
sign
so.
of it on the parkway right before you go down the ramp on the Greenway, but it says, how do you feel about motorized vehicles? And next to it, a line of cars parked on the Greenway. So include those on that complaint too.
That would be
Oh, I
good.
think license is third.
Right,
Yeah, but-
that would help.
You said-
Okay. So we have a motion to close the meeting, and hopefully we'll see everybody on October 11th for our next
Good luck,
meeting.
gentlemen.
Do we have a motion to close
Ruth
the
makes a
meeting?
motion to close the meeting.
Somebody second it?
Second.
All